Imagine a road that stretched from the shores of the Mediterranean to the heart of China, crossing deserts and mountains, connecting empires and cultures that would never have met otherwise. For over 1,000 years, caravans traveled this route, carrying silk and spices, spreading religions and ideas, creating a web of commerce and culture that shaped the ancient world. Tonight, we're going to walk this road, step by step, from the bustling markets of Constantinople to the imperial court of China, through lands where ancient civilizations rose and fell, where merchants risked everything for profit, where ideas traveled farther than any single person ever could. Our journey begins in Constantinople, the city of the world's desire, standing at the crossroads of Europe and Asia. It's the year 1000 CE, and Constantinople is the largest, wealthiest city in Christendom. Its walls are massive, protecting over 500,000 people. Its churches gleam with gold mosaics. Its harbor fills with ships from every corner of the known world. In the Grand Bazaar, merchants display goods from impossible distances. Silk from China, so fine it seems woven from light itself. Spices from India. Pepper, cinnamon, cardamom, worth more than their weight in silver. Gems from Ceylon, ivory from Africa, furs from the frozen north. And among all these wonders, the merchants themselves, Greeks and Armenians, Arabs and Italians, Jews and Persians, speaking a dozen languages, worshiping different gods, but united by commerce. You are a merchant, preparing for the journey of your lifetime. You've saved for years, invested everything you own in this venture. Your goal is China, the source of silk, where you hope to buy directly from producers and avoid the countless middlemen who usually stand between East and West. If you succeed, you'll return wealthy beyond imagination. If you fail, you'll lose everything and probably die somewhere in the deserts or mountains that lie ahead. Your caravan assembles outside the city walls. 40 camels, their humps heavy with goods to trade. 20 men, guards, servants, fellow merchants, guides who know portions of the route. Supplies for months of travel. Water skins, tents, weapons, food that won't spoil. Everything you need to survive a journey that will take over a year even if nothing goes wrong. The Silk Road isn't a single road. It's a network of routes, shifting paths that change based on politics, banditry, climate. Some caravans go north through the steppes, others go south through Persia. Your route will take you through the heartland, through cities whose names carry magic and menace: Antioch, Aleppo, Baghdad, Samarkand, Kashgar, each one a world unto itself, each one presenting opportunities and dangers. You leave Constantinople at dawn, passing through the Golden Gate, the ceremonial entrance through which emperors ride when they return from victorious campaigns. You're not an emperor, just a merchant, but you feel the weight of significance. You're following a path that traders have followed for 1,000 years, carrying on a tradition older than any empire. The first leg takes you across Anatolia, the heartland of the Byzantine Empire. The roads here are good, remnants of Roman engineering. You pass fortified towns, monasteries perched on hilltops, caravanserais where travelers can rest safely. The empire maintains order here. Bandits are rare. You make good progress, but you know this won't last. Beyond the empire's eastern border lies a different world, lands ruled by Muslim caliphs and Turkish warlords, where Byzantine authority means nothing, where a Christian merchant travels at considerable risk. You've paid for letters of introduction, for safe conduct passes from various rulers. Whether they'll be honored is another question. At night, the caravan camps in open fields or in caravanserais, fortified inns built specifically for traveling merchants. These are marvels of practical architecture: strong walls, secure stables for animals, rooms around a central courtyard, often a small mosque or chapel. Merchants from different caravans share news, trade information about road conditions, warn each other about dangers ahead. Around the campfire, stories are told. Tales of merchants who made fortunes, of caravans lost to sandstorms, of bandits and miracles and strange encounters in distant lands. These stories serve a purpose beyond entertainment. They're how knowledge travels, how merchants learn what to expect, how to negotiate in different cities, which routes to avoid, and which to take. One story you hear repeatedly is about a city ahead, Aleppo, one of the great trading centers where East meets West. If Constantinople is where your journey begins, Aleppo is where it truly starts, where you'll leave behind the familiar world of Christendom and enter the vast Islamic world that stretches all the way to India and beyond. As you drift toward sleep on your first night on the road, listening to unfamiliar languages, smelling spices from your cargo, feeling the cool night air of Anatolia, you wonder if you'll ever see Constantinople again. The journey ahead is long, dangerous, uncertain, but the promise of silk, of wealth, of adventure pulls you forward. Tomorrow you'll rise with the sun and continue east, following the ancient path, joining the endless stream of merchants who have crossed these lands for centuries, carrying goods and ideas from one side of the world to the other. 3 months into your journey, you reach Aleppo. The city rises from the plain like a mirage, walls of honey-colored stone, minarets pointing toward the sky and dominating everything. The great citadel standing on its artificial hill, a fortress so massive it seems carved from a single rock. Aleppo in the year 1000 is one of the world's great cities, though its greatest days still lie ahead. It stands at the junction of trade routes. Roads from Constantinople, from Baghdad, from Damascus, from the Mediterranean coast all converge here. Caravans arrive and depart constantly. The markets never sleep. You enter through the Antioch Gate, paying taxes to the officials who inspect your goods and charge duties based on value. This is expected, part of the cost of doing business. The rates are reasonable, and in exchange, the city offers security, infrastructure, and access to a market where anything can be bought or sold. The souk, the great covered market, stretches for miles through the city's heart. Different sections specialize in different goods. The spice market fills the air with scents of cinnamon, cumin, saffron. The textile market displays cotton from Egypt, wool from Anatolia, silk from China. The jewelry market glitters with gold and gems. Craftsmen work in small shops, hammering copper, weaving cloth, mixing perfumes. You find a caravanserai and settle in. Your goods need to be sold or traded. You can't carry everything to China. Some items are specific to this market, things Chinese merchants will want. Others you'll trade here for goods more suitable for the journey ahead. Trading in Aleppo requires patience and skill. You can't simply state a price and expect acceptance. Everything is negotiated, often over multiple days, with elaborate courtesy and ritual. You drink tea with merchants, discuss family and weather and politics before ever mentioning business. Trust must be established. Reputations matter more than contracts. You meet other merchants heading east. Some are going to Persia, others to Central Asia, a few all the way to China like you. Information is shared. Which passes through the mountains are open, which cities are safe, where bandits have been active. This informal network is crucial. Without it, you'd be traveling blind. One evening, in a coffee house near your caravanserai, you meet an old Arab merchant who has made the journey to China and back 3 times. He's too old for such travel now, but his advice is valuable. He tells you about the desert ahead, about the cities of Persia, about the high passes of the Hindu Kush Mountains, where the air is so thin that men struggle to breathe. The hardest part isn't the desert or the mountains, he says, sipping his coffee. It's the waiting. Weeks sometimes in cities along the way, waiting for passes to clear, for political situations to resolve, for other caravans to join so you travel in larger groups for safety. The journey tests your patience more than your courage. He tells you about Samarkand, the legendary city in Transoxiana, halfway to China. When you reach Samarkand, you'll know you're getting close. But close is relative. From Samarkand to China is still months of travel. Don't let the goal make you reckless. Merchants die most often when they're in a hurry. After a month in Aleppo, you've sold some goods, traded others, restocked supplies. Your caravan is smaller now. Some merchants turned back, others branched off on different routes. But you've also joined with other caravans heading east, making a larger group for security. Strength in numbers is the rule of the Silk Road. You leave Aleppo heading east toward the Euphrates River. The landscape changes, becoming drier, more austere. The cities are further apart. The caravanserais are more basic. You're leaving the Mediterranean world behind, entering the realm of Persia and beyond. At night, looking at the stars, you realize how far you've come and how much further you have to go. Constantinople seems like a dream now, a distant memory of home. The road ahead stretches endlessly, but the silk calls you onward. The promise of profit drives you forward, and somewhere, months of travel away, China waits with its precious fabrics and mysterious customs and the fortune you hope to make. The desert begins gradually. First the grass becomes sparse, then disappears entirely. The soil turns to sand. The horizon shimmers with heat. Water becomes the most precious commodity, more valuable than gold or silk. Your life depends on finding oases, those rare places where water surfaces, where a few palm trees provide shade, where caravans can rest and refill their water skins. The Syrian desert lies between Aleppo and the Euphrates River. It's not the worst desert you'll face. That distinction belongs to the Taklamakan, the Sea of Death in western China, still months away. But it's your first taste of what desert travel means. The caravan moves in the early morning and late afternoon, resting during the brutal midday heat. The camels plod steadily, seemingly unbothered by conditions that exhaust humans. These animals are the Silk Road's essential technology. They can go days without water, carry heavy loads, navigate terrain that would kill horses. Without camels, the Silk Road couldn't exist. Your guide is a Bedouin, a desert Arab whose people have crossed these sands for generations. He navigates by stars and by landmarks invisible to your eyes. A particular rock formation, the slope of a dune, patterns in the sand that tell him where water might be found. He saves your life daily simply by knowing where to go. Other caravans pass going the opposite direction, heading west with goods from China and India. You exchange news. They warn you about bandits near certain oases, tell you which cities have plague, which routes are safe. This information network is informal but efficient. News travels the Silk Road almost as fast as the caravans themselves. At an oasis, you rest for 2 days, letting the animals recover, refilling every container with water. The oasis is a small paradise in the desert. Palm trees, a spring of clear water, green grass. Merchants from different caravans share the space, watering animals, making repairs, conducting small trades. You meet a Chinese merchant heading west. He's been traveling for over a year, having left China with porcelain and silk, traded his way across Central Asia, and is now heading to Syria with profits from his sales. You share a meal communicating through a Persian merchant who speaks both Chinese and Arabic. The Chinese merchant tells you about the journey ahead. After Persia, you cross the desert to Samarkand. That's the easy part. The mountains after Samarkand, going into Chinese Turkestan, those are hard. We lost 3 men to altitude sickness and 2 to cold. And the Taklamakan Desert, many caravans enter and never emerge. Follow the southern route around it. Never attempt to cross directly. You ask about China itself? What's it like? The merchant smiles. Like nothing you've ever seen. The cities are huge. Changjiang has over 1 million people. The palace is like a small city itself. The silk markets? You'll see silk in colors and patterns you didn't know were possible. But be careful. The Chinese are particular about foreigners. Learn some customs before you arrive. Don't give offense. The conversation makes China feel real for the first time. Not just a distant goal, but an actual place with specific dangers and opportunities. You're halfway there in terms of time, though less than halfway in terms of distance. The worst parts lie ahead. Leaving the oasis, you enter a particularly barren section of desert. For 3 days, you see nothing but sand and sky. The monotony is hypnotic. Time loses meaning. You walk and rest and walk and rest, the days blurring together. At night, the desert is bitterly cold. You huddle around small fires, burning dried camel dung since there's no wood. One night, a sandstorm hits. The wind howls, turning the air into a stinging, choking mass of sand. You cover your face, huddle beneath a blanket, and wait it out. When it passes, you dig your tent out of the sand, check on the animals, count your people to make sure no one was lost or wandered off in the confusion. This is the Silk Road's reality. It's not romantic or adventurous most of the time. It's exhausting, uncomfortable, dangerous, and often boring. You endure it because the potential profits are enormous. A successful journey could make you wealthy for life. But success requires surviving hundreds of small dangers, any one of which could end in death. You reach the Euphrates River after 2 weeks in the desert. The sight of water, real flowing water after weeks of rationing every drop, is overwhelming. Men and animals alike rush to the river's edge to drink deeply. You camp on the bank and rest for several days, recovering from the desert's toll. Ahead lies Persia, the great cities of Baghdad and Isfahan, the mountains of the Zagros, the high plateau that stretches toward Central Asia. The desert is behind you, but other challenges await. The journey is far from over. Baghdad rises from the banks of the Tigris River like a vision from a dream. Approaching from the west, you see first the walls, massive brick fortifications encircling the city. Then the minarets and domes appear, glittering in the sun. The closer you get, the larger it seems, until the city's scale becomes overwhelming. This is the capital of the Abbasid Caliphate, one of the world's great empires. At its height a century ago, Baghdad may have been the largest city on earth, home to over 1 million people. By the year 1000, it's declined somewhat. Political fragmentation has weakened the caliphate, and power is shifting to regional capitals. But Baghdad remains magnificent, a center of learning, culture, and commerce that has few equals. You enter through the Damascus Gate, joining a stream of traffic, merchants, pilgrims, officials, servants. The guards inspect your goods, but wave you through without much fuss. Foreign merchants are common in Baghdad, welcome for the tax revenue they bring. The city inside the walls is a labyrinth of streets and markets and neighborhoods. The round city designed by the Caliph al-Mansur 2 centuries ago still forms the heart, though the city has sprawled far. Beyond those original walls, canals crisscross the city, bringing water from the Tigris, supporting gardens and fountains. The climate is hot, but the water makes it bearable. You find accommodation in a caravanserai in the merchant's quarter. Baghdad's caravanserais are luxurious compared to what you've experienced. Proper beds, bathhouses, servants to care for your animals and goods. The city caters to merchants because merchants bring wealth. The markets of Baghdad are legendary. The book market alone stretches for blocks, with hundreds of shops selling manuscripts on every subject: poetry, mathematics, medicine, philosophy, religious texts. Baghdad is a center of translation and learning. Greek philosophical texts, Indian mathematical works, Persian poetry, all are translated into Arabic here, preserved and built upon by Muslim scholars. You're not here for books, though. You're here to trade. Baghdad's markets offer goods from 3 continents: Indian spices and gemstones, African gold and ivory, Chinese silk and porcelain, Central Asian horses and furs. Anything that can be transported and sold passes through Baghdad's markets. But trading in Baghdad is complex. The market is dominated by established merchant families, with networks spanning the caliphate. As a foreign merchant, you're at a disadvantage. You need local partners, people who know the market, who can introduce you to the right buyers, who can navigate the city's commercial and political complexities. Through introductions from other merchants, you connect with a Jewish merchant family that has been in Baghdad for generations. They agree to broker your goods for a commission. It's expensive, but necessary. Without their help, you'd struggle to sell anything at fair prices. Your host merchant explains Baghdad's decline. 20 years ago, this city was the center of everything. The caliph's word was law from Spain to India. Now, regional governors ignore the caliph. Turkish military. Commanders hold the real power. The city is still rich, still cultured, but the glory days are passing. He's not bitter, just realistic. Commerce adapts to political realities. If power is shifting to regional capitals, merchants shift with it. If Baghdad declines, other cities will rise. The Silk Road is flexible, flowing around obstacles, finding new paths when old ones close. You spend 6 weeks in Baghdad, selling goods from Constantinople and Aleppo, buying Persian carpets and Damascus steel and other items that will fetch high prices further east. You also gather information. Which routes through the mountains are open? Which Central Asian cities are safe? Where to find guides who know the paths through the Hindu Kush? One evening, your host takes you to a majlis, a gathering where poets recite, musicians perform, and scholars discuss philosophy and science. You understand little of the Arabic poetry being recited, but the atmosphere is intoxicating. This is one of the world's great civilizations at its peak, and you're privileged to witness it. But you can't stay. China awaits. After 2 months in Baghdad, you prepare to leave. Your caravan has changed composition entirely. The merchants who left Constantinople with you have all turned back or branched off on other routes. You're traveling now with Persians and Central Asians, men who know the eastern roads better than the western ones. The route from Baghdad goes northeast, up onto the Iranian plateau, heading toward the great cities of Persia's interior, Isfahan, Hamadan, Ray. From there, you'll cross into Central Asia proper, into lands that were once Persian but are now increasingly Turkish, into the cultural frontier where Islam meets Buddhism and shamanism, where settled cities exist alongside nomadic horsemen who raid and trade in equal measure. Leaving Baghdad, you look back at the city from a hill. The sun is setting, and the city glows golden in the light. Minarets pierce the sky. The Tigris reflects the sunset. For a moment, you feel melancholy leaving such a place. But the road calls, the journey continues, and somewhere ahead, still months away, China waits with its silk and its mysteries and the fortune you've traveled so far to find. After crossing the Persian plateau through cities of turquoise-domed mosques and covered bazaars, after weeks in Merv and Bukhara and Samarkand, those legendary cities of Central Asia where Persian culture meets Turkish power, you reach the mountains. Not ordinary mountains, but the Pamirs, the roof of the world, where peaks scrape the sky and the air grows thin enough to make breathing a struggle. The Hindu Kush and Pamir ranges form a massive barrier between Central Asia and China. There are passes through them, but all are difficult. Your guide recommends the southern route, through what is now northern Afghanistan and the Wakhan Corridor. It's longer but safer than the direct routes that rise to even more extreme altitudes. The ascent begins gradually. You leave Balkh, an ancient city where Alexander the Great once camped, and head east into foothills. The landscape is beautiful. Green valleys watered by snowmelt, scattered villages where people speak languages you've never heard, terraced fields clinging to slopes at impossible angles. But beauty doesn't mean safety. These mountains are home to various peoples, Tajiks, Pashtuns, and others, who view passing caravans as legitimate sources of income through tolls, guides fees, or banditry, depending on circumstances. You pay tolls to local rulers, hire local guides, and pray you've paid enough to ensure safe passage. The valley's narrow. The trail becomes a path, then barely a track. You're climbing now, gaining altitude daily. At first, it's just tiring. Then you start feeling the altitude. Headaches, nausea, shortness of breath. The guides give you tea made from local herbs that supposedly helps. Whether it does or whether you're just acclimating is unclear. Nights are bitterly cold. Even in summer, frost forms on your tent. You wear every piece of clothing you own and still shiver. The animals suffer too. Some of the camels struggle at altitude. They're desert creatures, not mountain ones. You're using yaks now, sturdy animals adapted to high altitudes, rented from local herders. The local people are hardy beyond belief. They live at altitudes where you struggle to breathe, farming tiny plots of land, herding goats and yaks, surviving on barley and yogurt and whatever else these harsh mountains provide. They're welcoming in their way, offering tea and shelter, but communication is difficult. They speak their own languages, and few know Persian or Arabic. You pass through villages where Buddhism mixes with older shamanistic beliefs. You see prayer flags fluttering in the wind, stupas overlooking valleys, monasteries clinging to cliffsides. This is the frontier between civilizations. Islam behind you, Buddhism and Chinese culture ahead, and here in the mountains, a mix of both plus older traditions that predate either. The highest pass approaches. Your guides prepare you. It's a full day's climb to the top, then a descent to a valley where you can rest. The altitude at the pass will make you dizzy and weak. Some men faint. Some become delirious. Just keep moving, the guides say. Don't stop too long. Don't lie down. Keep breathing and keep walking. The climb is hell. The path switchbacks up a mountainside, gaining height so slowly it seems you'll never reach the top. Your lungs burn, your heart pounds, your head throbs. Every step is an effort. Around you, other merchants struggle similarly. One man collapses and has to be put on a yak. An animal slips off the path and tumbles down the slope, lost along with its cargo. But you reach the top. The pass is marked by cairns and prayer flags. The view stretches for hundreds of miles, peaks in every direction, valleys lost in shadow. The world, spread below like a wrinkled carpet. You can't appreciate it properly because you can barely breathe, but you understand you're seeing something few people ever see. The descent is almost worse than the climb. Steep, treacherous, your exhausted legs struggling to control your descent on loose scree. But altitude sickness eases as you descend. Breathing becomes easier. By the time you reach the valley, you feel almost human again. You rest for 3 days, recovering. Several men have frostbite. One dies. The altitude stressed his heart beyond what it could bear. You bury him in a lonely grave far from home, marked with stones, and say prayers in languages he wouldn't have understood, but which seem appropriate in this remote place. The worst is behind you now. Ahead lies the Taklamakan Desert, dangerous in its own way, but at least at a lower altitude, and beyond the desert finally China. You're close now, closer than you've ever been. The journey that seemed impossible in Constantinople is nearly complete. Just a desert to cross, and you'll have reached the end of the Silk Road, the source of silk, the goal of this year-long journey through half the known world. The Taklamakan Desert earned its name honestly. Place of no return in the local Turkic language. It's one of the world's largest sand deserts, stretching across western China, bordered by mountains on 3 sides and merging with other deserts to the east. Caravans don't cross the Taklamakan directly. They go around it, following the oases strung along its northern or southern edges like pearls on a string. You take the southern route, following an ancient path from Kashgar, a city where Turkic, Chinese, Persian, and Indian influences blend into something unique. Eastward along the desert's edge toward Khotan and eventually Dunhuang, the gateway to China proper. The route jumps from oasis to oasis. These are real towns, not just wells in the desert. Yarkand, Khotan, Nia, places with thousands of inhabitants, mud brick buildings, markets, mosques, and Buddhist temples side by side. They survive on water from the mountains, on trade from passing caravans, on agriculture in the narrow strips of irrigated land. The desert itself is terrifying. Sand dunes stretch to the horizon, some over 1,000 feet high, shifting with the wind. Sandstorms can arise suddenly, burying caravans, erasing the path. The heat is intense during the day, the cold bitter at night. Water is everything. You carry it in skins, ration it carefully, and pray you reach the next oasis before supplies run out. Local guides are essential. They know the path, know where to find seasonal wells, know how to read the dunes and stars to navigate. Without them, you'd be lost within days. They tell stories of caravans that took wrong turns, that became disoriented in sandstorms, that ran out of water between oases. The desert is littered with bones, animal and human, from caravans that failed to make the crossing. But the desert also has an eerie beauty. At dawn and dusk, the dunes glow in shades of gold and orange and red. The silence is absolute, except for wind hissing over sand. At night, the stars are brilliant in the clear, dry air. So many stars you feel you could walk among them. You reach Khotan after 3 weeks on the southern route. The city is famous for jade and for silk production. This is the first place west of China proper where silk is made. The secrets of sericulture were supposedly smuggled here centuries ago by a Chinese princess who hid silkworm eggs in her elaborate headdress. Khotan is also a major Buddhist center. The monasteries are wealthy, supported by donations from merchants seeking blessings for safe travel. You make an offering yourself. Pragmatism overcoming religious differences. Buddha or Christ, any divine protection seems worth pursuing when you're traveling through deserts and mountains thousands of miles from home. You meet merchants who have been to China and back multiple times. Their advice is consistent. Be respectful, be patient, understand that Chinese officials value ceremony and propriety. Don't try to rush negotiations. Don't show desperation. The Chinese know they have what you want. They'll drive hard bargains. After a month in Khotan, you continue east. The oases become more frequent as you approach China proper. The culture shifts. More Chinese influence, more bureaucracy, more officials checking documents and collecting taxes. You're entering the sphere of the Tang Dynasty, one of history's great empires, though by 1000 CE it has fragmented into competing kingdoms. Still, Chinese culture dominates, and as a foreign merchant, you must navigate its complexities. Dunhuang appears on the horizon, your last stop before entering China proper. The city sits at the mouth of the Hexi Corridor, the route through the mountains to the heartland of China. It's here that caravans gather, organize, and prepare for the final leg of the journey to Chang'an, the capital. Dunhuang is a marvel, a desert city that's become wealthy from controlling the trade route. Its markets overflow with goods from across Asia. Its Buddhist caves, carved into cliffs outside the city, contain hundreds of shrines and thousands of painted walls. The accumulated devotion of centuries of merchants thanking the gods for safe passage and praying for continued protection. You rest in Dunhuang for 6 weeks, the longest stop since Baghdad. Your caravan reorganizes completely. Some merchants are heading back west with Chinese goods. Others are continuing east. You join a large caravan bound for Chang'an, safety in numbers for this final and in some ways most dangerous leg of the journey. Because while natural obstacles are behind you, human obstacles remain. Bandits prey on caravans approaching Chang'an, knowing they carry valuable goods. Local warlords charge tolls at every opportunity. Chinese officials are notoriously suspicious of foreigners and can delay caravans for weeks over paperwork issues. But you're so close now. The desert is crossed. The mountains are behind you. China lies ahead with its legendary wealth, its sophisticated culture, and the silk that has drawn you across half the world. The journey that began in Constantinople over a year ago is nearly complete. At night, camped outside Dunhuang beneath the star-filled sky, you think about the road behind you, the cities you've seen, the dangers you've survived, the cultures you've passed through. The Silk Road has shown you the world's diversity, how many ways humans can live, what they value, how they organize their societies. And tomorrow, you'll begin the final approach to China, to the goal of this incredible journey, to the silk that makes it all worthwhile. Chang'an spreads before you like something from a dream. The walls alone are impressive, 30 feet high, enclosing over 30 square miles. But inside those walls lies something unprecedented. Over 1 million people live in Chang'an, making it one of the largest cities in the world. The streets are laid out in a perfect grid, wide avenues running north-south and east-west. Markets are designated areas where anything can be bought. Neighborhoods are walled and gated, locked at night to maintain order. This is your first experience of Chinese urban planning, and it's overwhelming. Constantinople was large but chaotic, its streets following ancient patterns, its neighborhoods organically grown. Chang'an is designed, rational, organized with a precision that seems almost inhuman. You're required to register with authorities immediately upon arrival. Foreign merchants are tracked carefully: where you're staying, what you're selling, how long you plan to stay. This isn't persecution, just Chinese bureaucracy. The empire wants to know who is within its borders and what they're doing. You find accommodation in the Western Market's foreign quarter. This section of the city houses merchants from across Asia, Persians, Arabs, Indians, Central Asians, even a few Koreans and Japanese. Each group has its own neighborhood, its own places of worship, its own markets and customs. Chang'an is cosmopolitan in a way that surprises you. For all its uniqueness, the city welcomes foreigners who follow its rules. The markets are incredible. The silk market alone could occupy you for weeks. Hundreds of shops and stalls displaying silk in every quality and color, plain white silk, dyed silks in colors you've never seen, embroidered silks depicting dragons and phoenixes, patterned silks with geometric designs. The variety is staggering. You thought you understood what Chinese silk was, but you knew nothing until seeing this. Buying requires patience and strategy. You can't simply offer money and expect acceptance. Negotiations follow elaborate protocols. You express interest. The merchant shows various options. You discuss quality, price, quantities. Nothing is rushed. Tea is drunk. Sometimes negotiations span days for a single large purchase. You hire a Chinese assistant who speaks Persian to help navigate the market and customs. He explains that silk varies enormously in quality and price. The finest silk, reserved for the imperial court, isn't even available to merchants. What you can buy ranges from very good to mediocre. Knowing the difference requires expertise you don't have, which is why you need a local expert. Your assistant also explains Chinese customs that seem bizarre to you, the importance of hierarchy and respect, the rituals around tea drinking, the significance of colors and symbols. What might seem like innocent decoration to you could be reserved for imperial use, and displaying it could cause offense. Outside the markets, you explore the city when time allows. The Buddhist and Taoist temples are magnificent, rivaling anything in Constantinople or Baghdad in size and beauty. The architecture is completely different. Wooden buildings with curved roofs, red pillars, intricate brackets supporting the eaves. Everything seems designed to harmonize with nature, even in the heart of this massive city. One day, you witness an imperial procession. The emperor travels from the palace to a temple, surrounded by hundreds of guards, officials, and servants. The street clears. People kneel. The procession passes in absolute silence, except for bells and drums. You get just a glimpse of the palanquin carrying the emperor, hidden behind silk curtains. It's a display of power, but also of order. Everything precisely choreographed, everyone knowing their role. After 3 months in Chang'an, you've assembled your cargo. 20 camel loads of the finest silk you can afford, plus porcelain, tea, and other items that will sell well in the West. You've spent almost everything you brought, plus borrowed money from other merchants, betting your entire fortune on the return journey. Because now comes the hardest part, getting everything back to Constantinople intact. The journey there taught you the routes and dangers, but returning with valuable cargo makes you a target for bandits and corrupt officials. You'll need to be careful, lucky, and smart to make it home with your goods and your life. The caravan assembles outside Chang'an's western gate. You're traveling with other merchants heading west, forming a large group for protection. Some of your companions are Chinese merchants who regularly trade with Central Asia. Others are returning foreigners like yourself. Together, you number over 100 men with 300 animals. As you leave Chang'an, passing through the gate and onto the road west, you feel both relief and anxiety. Relief because you've accomplished your goal. You've reached China, conducted business, bought silk. Anxiety because the journey home is at least as dangerous as the journey here, and now you're carrying cargo worth a fortune, making you an attractive target. But there's also satisfaction. You've done what you set out to do. You've traveled the Silk Road from end to end, seen wonders most people will never see, crossed deserts and mountains that defeat many who attempt them. Whether you make it home with your silk or die somewhere on the return journey, you've achieved something remarkable. You've walked the road that connects the world, that carries goods and ideas from east to west, that has existed for 1,000 years and will exist for hundreds more. The road stretches ahead, familiar now that you've traveled it once. Dunhuang waits weeks to the west. Beyond it, the desert, the mountains, the cities of Central Asia and Persia. And finally, if fortune favors you, Constantinople, home. You settle into the rhythm of travel. Early starts, long days of walking, evenings setting up camp. The landscape flows past, each day bringing you closer to home or to whatever fate awaits on this dangerous return journey. But for now, you're on the road, part of the endless stream of merchants who have traveled this route for centuries, carrying the silk that gives the road its name, following the ancient paths, keeping alive the connections between distant civilizations. The return journey is both easier and harder than the outbound trip. Easier because you know the routes now, know what to expect, have contacts in the cities along the way. Harder because you're carrying valuable cargo, because every bandit and corrupt official sees you as a potential source of income, because the weight of your investment presses on you constantly. You reach Dunhuang after a month of travel through the Hexi corridor. The city feels familiar now, almost comfortable. You rest for 2 weeks, making repairs, replacing worn equipment, gathering information about conditions on the route ahead. Other merchants warn of increased bandit activity near Kashgar and political instability in Samarkand. You adjust your route accordingly, planning to take a more northern path through the mountains. The Taklamakan crossing is uneventful this time. You know what to expect, have experienced guides, take no chances. You stick to established paths, avoid shortcuts, arrive at each oasis with water to spare. The desert that terrified you on the way to China now seems almost manageable. Fear comes from uncertainty, and you're no longer uncertain about what desert travel requires. Kashgar greets you with complications. A local warlord has imposed new taxes on passing caravans. You negotiate, pay what you must, and move on quickly. Staying too long in politically unstable cities invites trouble. Better to keep moving, maintain momentum, get your goods to market before anything happens to them. The mountain crossing is harder in autumn than it was in summer. Snow has already started falling in the high passes. You wait in a valley for a week, hoping for clear weather, then make a desperate push when a brief window opens. The Crossing is terrifying. Wind, snow, freezing temperatures, animals slipping on ice. But you make it through, losing only one animal and having to abandon some of its cargo. Samarkand in autumn is beautiful. The trees are turning color. The air is crisp. The sky impossibly blue. The city feels prosperous and peaceful, a welcome change from the tensions in Kashgar. You spend a month here, selling some of your Chinese goods at excellent prices, using the profits to pay off debts and secure your remaining cargo. One evening, you're invited to dinner by a successful Persian merchant who made his fortune on the Silk Road decades ago. His house is beautiful, filled with treasures from across Asia. Over an elaborate meal, he tells stories of his travels, of fortunes made and lost, of friends who died on the road, and others who became wealthy beyond measure. The Silk Road isn't just about silk, he says. It's about connection. Look at this house. That carpet is from Persia. The porcelain from China. The spices from India. The metalwork from Damascus. The world comes together here, in these cities along the route. Ideas travel with the goods. Buddhism came from India to China on this road. Islam spread through Central Asia on this road. Technologies, foods, music, everything flows along these paths. He's right. You've seen it yourself. Chinese innovations in papermaking spreading west. Islamic mathematics moving east. Persian poetry influencing Turkish literature. The Silk Road carries more than physical goods. It carries the building blocks of civilization itself. Leaving Samarkand, you feel the pull of home growing stronger. You're past the halfway point now. Each day brings you closer to Constantinople. The landscape becomes more familiar as you approach Persia. You see places you remember from the outbound journey, though seeing them in reverse order is disorienting. Baghdad is dealing with political turmoil when you arrive. The caliph's power has weakened. Further, Turkish military commanders are asserting control. The markets are still functioning, but there's tension in the air. You sell quickly and leave, not wanting to be caught in the city if violence erupts. The Syrian desert crossing is routine now. You know the oases, know the distances, know how much water to carry. The desert that seemed terrifying on the way to China is just landscape now, something to cross efficiently before moving on. Aleppo welcomes you like an old friend. The city is unchanged, its markets still bustling, its caravanserais still full. You rest here for a month, selling the last of your Chinese goods at prices that exceed your most optimistic projections. The silk fetches extraordinary sums. The porcelain sells immediately. The tea is a novelty that merchants buy eagerly. You calculate your profits and realize you've succeeded beyond your hopes. After paying debts and expenses, you've made enough to live comfortably for the rest of your life. The journey's risks have paid off. You're returning wealthy, successful, accomplished. The final leg from Aleppo to Constantinople feels like a victory march. The road is familiar. The cities are ones you know. You're no longer an uncertain merchant venturing into the unknown, but a successful trader completing a profitable journey. Constantinople appears on the horizon on a clear spring morning. The walls, the churches, the harbor, all exactly as you left them 18 months ago. But you've changed. You left as a moderately successful merchant with ambitions. You're returning as someone who has accomplished something remarkable, who has seen the world, who has walked the Silk Road from end to end and back again. Passing through the Golden Gate, entering the city, you feel a complex mix of emotions: relief at being home, pride in what you've accomplished, exhaustion from the journey, but also something like melancholy. The journey is over. The adventure has ended. You'll never again experience the intensity of that first crossing, the wonder of seeing China for the first time, the raw fear of the mountain passes. But you have the silk. You have the profits. You have stories that will entertain friends for years. And you have the knowledge that you did something few people ever do. You traveled the Silk Road connected east and west, participated in one of history's great networks of trade and cultural exchange. At night, in your own bed in Constantinople, you think about the road, the cities you passed through, the merchants you met, the guides who saved your life, the landscapes that took your breath away. The Silk Road will continue without you, carrying other merchants on their own journeys, connecting civilizations, spreading ideas and goods across thousands of miles. You made the journey. You walked the road. And now, as sleep comes, you dream of deserts and mountains, of cities where strange languages are spoken, of caravans winding across landscapes that stretch to the horizon. The Silk Road has become part of you, woven into your memories like the silk you traveled so far to find. The Silk Road existed for over 1,000 years, from roughly 200 BCE to 1400 CE. It wasn't a single road, but a network of routes connecting China to the Mediterranean, crossing some of the world's most difficult terrain, linking civilizations that would never have otherwise met. The name Silk Road is modern, coined by a German geographer in the 19th century. The people who actually traveled these routes didn't call it that, they just called it the road, or the trade route, or sometimes the road to the west or the road to the east, depending on which direction they were going. But silk did drive the trade for much of the route's history. Chinese silk was prized in Rome, Persia, the Byzantine Empire. It was light enough to justify the transport costs, valuable enough to make the journey profitable, and couldn't be produced elsewhere for centuries. Thus, secrets of sericulture, raising silkworms, harvesting their cocoons, processing the thread into fabric, were jealously guarded by China. Eventually, those secrets leaked out. The Byzantine Empire allegedly obtained silkworm eggs smuggled from China by monks who hid them in hollow bamboo staffs. Silk production spread to Persia, Central Asia, and eventually the Mediterranean. As silk became less exclusive, the Silk Road's economic importance declined, though it continued functioning as a trade route for other goods. The Silk Road's real significance wasn't economic, though. It was cultural. Buddhism spread from India to China along these routes. Islam expanded through Central Asia. Technologies moved in both directions. Chinese papermaking and gunpowder reached the west, while Western glassmaking and metallurgy reached the east. Foods dispersed: pomegranates from Persia, peaches from China, grapes from the Mediterranean, all spreading along the trade routes. Diseases also traveled the Silk Road. The Black Death, which devastated Europe in the 14th century, likely spread westward along these routes, carried by infected fleas on rats that traveled with caravans. The plague killed millions, changed European history, and in a dark irony, contributed to the Silk Road's decline by disrupting trade and depopulating cities along the route. The Silk Road began dying in the 15th century. The Mongol Empire, which had unified and secured much of the route in the 13th century, fragmented. Regional conflicts made travel dangerous. European ships began sailing to Asia around Africa, offering an alternative to the overland route. By 1500, the Silk Road was largely abandoned, its cities declining, its caravanserais falling into ruin. But the road never completely disappeared. Trade continued on smaller scales. Local routes remained active. And in the 21st century, China's Belt and Road Initiative has explicitly invoked the Silk Road's legacy, proposing new infrastructure connecting Asia to Europe, echoing the ancient trade routes. The ruins of Silk Road cities still exist. You can visit Samarkand, though it's been rebuilt many times since its Silk Road heyday. Dunhuang's caves remain, their paintings preserved by the dry climate. Caravanserais still stand in Persia and Turkey, though most are now museums or hotels rather than functioning merchant lodgings. Walking through these places today, it's hard to imagine the bustle of Silk Road times, the caravans arriving and departing, the merchants haggling in a dozen languages, the mix of cultures and religions, the flow of goods from across the known world. That vitality is gone, replaced by tourism and nostalgia. but something of the Silk Road survives in the modern world. The cuisines of Central Asia blend influences from all the cultures that met along the trade routes. Languages in the region contain loanwords from Chinese, Persian, Arabic, Turkish. Architectural styles show influences from multiple traditions. The Silk Road left its mark on everything it touched, and the idea of the Silk Road persists. The image of merchants crossing deserts, of caravans winding through mountain passes, of distant civilizations connected by trade and curiosity. It represents globalization before the term existed, cultural exchange before modern communication, the human drive to explore and connect and profit from connection. If you could travel the Silk Road today, following the ancient routes from Constantinople to Chang'an, you'd pass through Turkey, Iran, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, and Western China. Some sections have modern highways. Others are barely passable. The cities exist but have changed beyond recognition. The caravanserais are empty. The markets sell different goods. The caravans are gone, replaced by trucks and trains. But the mountains are the same. The deserts are the same. The distances are the same. And if you stopped in the right places, at the right times, if you closed your eyes and listened, you might almost hear the echoes, the bells of camel caravans, the calls of merchants advertising their goods, the multilingual chatter of travelers from distant lands, all the sounds of a road that connected the world for over 1,000 years. As you drift toward sleep, imagine you're on that road. The stars above are the same stars medieval merchants navigated by. The silence of the desert night is the silence they experienced. The vastness of the landscape is what they saw. Mountains stretching to the horizon, dunes shifting in the wind, cities rising like mirages from dusty plains. You're lying in a caravanserai somewhere between Constantinople and China. The exact location doesn't matter. What matters is the journey itself, the experience of crossing those impossible distances, of connecting cultures separated by thousands of miles of some of the world's most difficult terrain. Around you, other merchants sleep, dreaming their own dreams. Some dream of home, of families left behind months or years ago. Some dream of profit, of the fortunes they hope to make. Some dream of the road ahead, of cities they haven't yet seen, of adventures still to come. And some don't dream at all, too exhausted from the day's journey to do anything but sink into unconsciousness and rest. Outside, the animals rest. Camels, horses, yaks, donkeys, all the beasts of burden that make this trade possible. Guards patrol the caravanserai's walls, watching for bandits. The night is quiet except for the wind and occasional animal sounds. Tomorrow, you'll wake at dawn and continue. Another day of travel, another step closer to your destination, whether that's China or Constantinople or one of the many cities in between. The road will continue to unfold, each day bringing new challenges and new wonders, until finally you reach your goal and can begin the journey home. But for now, rest. The road has existed for centuries before you traveled. It and will exist for centuries after. Millions of merchants have made this journey, each carrying their own goods, pursuing their own fortunes, experiencing their own adventures. You're part of that endless stream, a single traveler on a road that never truly ends. The Silk Road lives in memory now more than reality, but memory can be vivid. Close your eyes, and you're there. In a desert at dawn, watching the sun rise over dunes. In a mountain pass, struggling to breathe in the thin air. In a market in Samarkand, surrounded by goods from 3 continents. On a street in Chang'an, marveling at a city larger and more organized than anything you've ever seen. These experiences, real for countless merchants over 1,000 years, exist now only in imagination. But imagination is powerful. It can transport you across time and space, let you experience what others experienced, see what they saw, feel what they felt. And in that way, the Silk Road never truly died. It continues in every person who reads about it imagines it, dreams about it. So dream now of caravans and cities, of silk and spices, of the road that connected the world. Dream of distances crossed and fortunes made. Dream of the merchants who traveled these routes, who risked everything for profit and adventure, who built connections between civilizations that changed history. The Silk Road awaits in your dreams, as vivid and alive as it ever was, ready to transport you across deserts and mountains, from Constantinople to China and back again. The journey is yours for the taking, the adventure yours to experience, the road yours to travel, all without leaving your bed, all in the space between waking and sleeping, where imagination makes everything possible. Rest well, traveler. The road goes on forever in the realm of dreams, and you've only just begun your journey. The cities await, filled with wonders. The landscape stretched to the horizon, beautiful and terrible. The other merchants welcome you too. Their caravans. And somewhere, in the distance, silk as fine as spider's web waits to be traded. Profits wait to be made. Adventures wait to be experienced. The Silk Road never ends. It continues in stories and memories, in ruins scattered across Central Asia, in the DNA of populations mixed through centuries of trade and migration, in the goods and ideas and technologies that spread along its routes and shape the modern world. You are part of that story now. You've walked the road, if only in imagination. You've seen the cities, crossed the deserts, climbed the mountains. The journey is yours. The memories are yours. The experience is yours. And now, as sleep deepens, as dreams take over completely, the Silk Road becomes more real than reality, more vivid than waking life. You're there, on the road, traveling east or west, past or present blurring together, all the merchants who ever made this journey traveling with you, all the cities that ever stood along this route welcoming you, all the wonders of the ancient world spreading before you like a road that has no end. Sleep well. The journey continues in dreams, and when you wake, the road will still be there, waiting in imagination, ready to transport you across the world whenever you close your eyes and remember the greatest trade route in history, the Silk Road that connected civilizations and changed the world.